Hey guys, welcome to the September subscription box tutorial. I'm going to show you guys how I put together this fall wheelbarrow, which I absolutely adore. It's a fairly easy project to put together. Takes about 45 minutes to an hour or so. The colors I used for mine are a cream color, a dark brown, and orange for the pumpkins. We're going to start by painting a base coat on all of our pieces. You can use a brush or a sponge for this part, but because the pieces are a little bit larger, I like to use a brush. It's a bit faster. When you're painting these pieces, try really hard not to get a lot of excess paint into the little notches. That'll make it a little bit more difficult to assemble later. If you get too much excess paint in there, they don't fit together quite right. So just be mindful of that during this step. These pieces here are a little bit delicate, so I use a sponge on this. Once you get a base coat on everything, you'll want to go back and add a second coat on some of the lighter pieces. I do this for the cream colored pieces, and I also did a second coat on the orange pieces as well. Then flip everything over and repeat on the back side. You don't need to paint the back side of the little decorative pieces that say it's fall because you won't see those. Next, we're going to do some distressing. This part's optional, of course, but you're going to want to use your coarse distressing brush. When you dip it into the paint, you're going to want to wipe off as much as you possibly can. You don't want a ton of paint on the brush because it'll go on too heavy. And then just very, very lightly brush your paintbrush across your piece. You can always go back and add more, but if you put on too much, it's hard to take it off, so go light at first. And it's kind of hard to see in the video, but in person you can see it. And then don't forget to distress the back side of all these pieces as well. I also distressed my pumpkins, but you don't have to. And then I go in and distress the brown pieces with the cream color. The next thing we're going to do is assemble our wheelbarrow. Before you start gluing, make sure you do a test run, you know how the pieces fit together, and that you can get everything inside the slots. What happens is while you're painting, if you get excess paint inside of the little slots, or if your paint layers are kind of thick, it might be a snug fit, so you might have to use a little bit of pressure to get it on there. But once you know that everything fits together properly, then you can take the pieces off one by one and start gluing them. If you're having trouble getting the pieces to fit together and you know that you have excess paint in there, you can use a little toothpick or an X-Acto knife or something and kind of scrape around the edges and get that paint out of there, or use a little bit of sandpaper on the slot pieces themselves, on the little notches, and it should go together just fine. And then you can start gluing everything together. I like super glue because it's quick and it sets fast, but you can use just about any kind of glue you want. Wood glue works. You can use, I've seen people use like tacky glue and stuff. Those are a little bit harder because you have to hold the pieces together while it dries. The super glue is definitely the way to go, in my opinion. Next, we're going to assemble the base. Now the little notch on the wheel, it only fits in there one way. So if you're having trouble, turn the wheel a little bit and try it the other way. This one's going to be a little bit tricky if you're not using super glue, because you are going to have to hold it together for a little while. And the next thing we're going to do is attach the bucket to the base. There's 4 notches on the bucket itself, 2 in the front, 2 in the back. So just make sure you know how it's going to go on. The easiest thing I found to do is add your glue to the base, to the railing, and then flip your bucket over and put it on while it's upside down. These ones fit kind of snug on mine because I got a little crazy with the paint earlier. So I had to use a little bit of pressure here. If you're doing that, if you had to use pressure, push on where the notches are, not around the edges because you might break something. And then you can glue on your decorative pieces. The decorative pieces are optional, so obviously this is a fall themed kit, but if you wanted to make something a little bit more neutral, you can leave these decorative pieces off. And then you can put whatever you want inside the wheelbarrow. So I have designed this to have leaves in the back and the pumpkins in the front. But if you wanted to leave it up year round, you can put Easter eggs in there or spring flowers in the springtime, whatever you want. It's totally up to you. And then lastly, I go back in and I like to touch up the edges on some of these. I think it gives it a little bit more of a finished look. In hindsight, it probably would have been easier to touch up the edges before gluing the base to the bucket, but either way works. And then again, since it's a lighter color, you may have to go in and add multiple coats. I think I did two coats on most of the edges, but depending on the type of paint you use, you may need to do more. And then the pumpkins are super simple. They just slide together. I had a little dot of glue in there to keep them from wiggling around too much. And then I touch up the edges on those as well. And then to finish off the pumpkins, use a little bit of the twine that I sent in the kit to make a little bow at the top. And then those should be done. You can glue the bow on if you want to make it a little bit more permanent, but I didn't. And then that's it. You can add your leaves into the back of the wheelbarrow. If you wanted to, you could add other things like pine cones and more pumpkins and whatever you want. But just put it all together and display it.